Today we're looking at Course 2 in Glencoe Math, Lesson 5.3, which is on properties and operations. There are several properties that we need to know that make our life easier. The first is a communitive property. The communitive property, the way that I think about it, you went to a community picnic or a church picnic or something like that. Something where there is a community of people involved. The communitive property says that it doesn't matter what order you add or you multiply numbers in, as long as they're all included. So if you were at that picnic of sorts, and you talked to your mom or your dad or your aunt or whoever afterwards, and they said, "Who did you talk to?" Does it matter what order you talk to the people in?
No.
No, but you have to make sure you included everybody. All right? That's how the communitive property works. As long as all of your terms are included, it doesn't matter what order they're in. The associative property is the other one that we use a lot. And the associative property says that I can group addition and multiplication kind of however I want to. Because the way that I group it is not going to change. So, and the way that I think of the associative property and grouping is if you think about who you associate with.
Your peers.
Okay, so you associate with your peers. That's your group. Okay? Do groups of people that you associate with, do those change sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay? So the associative property says that you can change your groups. And that makes things easier to solve. Now, these don't work if you're going to subtract or if you're going to divide. You cannot use these with subtraction or division. Because when you subtract and when you divide, the number that comes first matters. When you add or when you multiply, it doesn't. Okay? So we can only use those with addition and multiplication. And we're going to focus on those two properties. We also have the identity property of multiplication. That means that anything times 1 is itself. That's what the identity property says. Or anything plus 0 is itself. We know these things, but now they have names. All right, let's look at a couple examples, all right? If you looked at example 1 on page 368, it says 2 times 5 times n equals 2 times 5 times n. What property is that showing us? What property does that represent? Yes. The associative. Why does that show us the associative? Somebody else. Why does that show us the associative property? Go ahead.
Because it's grouped like in two different things.
Right, it's showing the grouping, or it's showing what numbers are associated with each other. Okay? All right, let's look at not that one. All right, I'm going to make up an example because I didn't provide one. What if we had what property does that show? Yes, sir. The commutative property. Why does that show the commutative property? Right, because it changed up the order of numbers. Which would be easier to solve? 3 plus 8 plus 7 or 3 plus 7 plus 8?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
3 plus 7 plus 8. Why is that easier? What's 3 plus 10, or what's 3 plus 7? 10. So then we can add 10 plus 8 as opposed to 11 plus 7. If we end with a 0, that makes things nice and easy when we add, doesn't it? Okay? All right. Now, being able to identify these is important. However, I'm more interested in whether or not we can use them and apply them. All right? So, we're going to look at example 3. Example 3 says that Elena wants to buy a sweater that costs $38 and a pair of sunglasses that are $14 and jeans that are $22 and a t-shirt that's $16. How much is she going to spend? If we don't have a calculator because Elena's mom took her cell phone, so she doesn't have her handy dandy cell phone calculator. All right? She doesn't have her phone. She doesn't have a calculator because she's at the store. All right? What can we do to make this easier to solve in our head?
Break it down.
Break it down. How so?
You can do 30. No.
Is there a property that I could use to make this easier to solve in my head? Yes, sir.
You can break it down to 11 or 22.
Okay, so turn 22 into 11 plus 11?
Yes.
I could, but if I use one of my properties, I don't have to do that. Okay? What property could I use? It's either going to be the associative or the commutative.
Commutative.
Okay, I'm going to use a commutative property. Now, in this example, we said that getting a ones digit of a 0 made things easier. Do I have any numbers up here that when I add them together, I get a ones digit of a 0? Hold on. Let people think for a second. Yes, sir.
14 and 16.
14 and 16. If I add those two together, I end up with a 0 at the end, don't I?
Yep.
Okay, so let's rewrite this. 14 plus 16. Now, do I have to include the 38 and the 22?
Yes. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we still buying those?
Yes.
Yeah, so we still have to pay for those, okay? Alright. Then I'm actually going to use my associative property too. Because that says I can group things together however I want, right? So can I break this down and add parentheses here to group this?
Yes.
Yeah. What's 14 plus 16? 30. What's 38 and 22? 60. Because the 8 plus the 2 is 10. 3 plus 2 is 5 plus 1 is 6. What's 30 plus 60?
90.
90. So that means that before tax,
She say $90.
right, before tax, we can expect to be paying $90. Did we need a calculator?
Nope. Yeah, nope.
Mental math.
You broke it down.
No, because Anna doesn't have her phone.
Right, so Elena doesn't have her phone. And if she doesn't have her phone, then she doesn't have a way to use a calculator.
Nope.
All right? All right, guys, that's what this lesson is all about. Are there any questions?
No.
Perfect. Thank you.